One evening, a young couple enjoying a hike along a popular Michigan trail encountered something unusual, a frantic dog pacing back and forth along the path. Curious and uneasy, they decided to investigate, not knowing the chilling discovery that awaited them. Just off the trail, hidden from view, lay the lifeless body of a young woman. The brutal nature of her injuries made it immediately clear. This was no accident. What had started as an ordinary evening walk had turned into the scene of an unspeakable crime. But the real terror lied in the question: who was behind it, and how did such an act go unnoticed? As we unravel the details of that fateful day, we'll uncover the disturbing truth behind the murder that shook a small town to its core. This is the heartbreaking case of April Millsap. April Dawn Millsap was born on January 2nd, 2000, in Wise County, Virginia. She was the daughter of Jennifer and Bobby Millsap and was their only child. April lived with her mother and stepfather after her parents separated during her early years. Following the separation, her mother remarried, and they moved to Armada, Michigan, where they lived with David Lichtenfeld, who was now April's stepfather. April attended Armada Middle School, where she was known by her friends for her cheerful and friendly nature. She received her first communion in 2010, completed 8th grade, and was about to start high school in the fall before the unfortunate happened to her in 2014. On the evening of July 24, 2014, 14-year-old April Millsap went for a walk along Michigan's Macomb Orchard Trail with her dog Penny, as she had done many times before. This time, however, only one of them would make it home alive. Shortly after 7 p.m., a young couple hiking the same path spotted a nervous and agitated dog pacing ahead. When they went to check, they discovered the body of a young girl lying just off the trail. The condition of her remains made it immediately clear that her death was not an accident. Officers from the Armada Police Department were swiftly dispatched to the scene. A preliminary examination revealed that the victim had been violently assaulted before being killed. Her shirt was torn, and her shorts and underwear had been pulled down to her ankles. Imprints from what appeared to be track shoes were visible on the right side of her face and neck. Notably, her cell phone, which she always carried, was missing, leading police to believe her killer had taken it. April had left home with her phone and a backpack. Police dogs were brought in to track her belongings, while officers worked to obtain her phone records. Fortunately, the dogs and officers found her items about a mile away near a house. Her phone was recovered the following day, and upon examining it, the police discovered a fitness app that would later provide them with valuable data. While officers were investigating the scene, a woman arrived identifying herself as Jennifer Millsap, searching for her daughter April, who hadn't returned home after going out with the family dog. She was accompanied by a teenage boy she introduced as Austin, April's boyfriend. Jennifer explained that she had contacted Austin when she realized something was wrong. To her shock, Austin told her that although they hadn't met that day, he had received a strange text from April at 6:28 p.m. The unsettling message read, "I think I almost got kidnapped. Oh my God." As mentioned earlier, when police recovered April's phone, they used tracking data from a fitness app on it, which suggested that the killer had taken her phone after the murder. The app's data showed that April had been walking at a steady pace of 4 miles per hour, but around 6:20 p.m., her pace suddenly increased, indicating at least 15 minutes of frantic movement. Then, as previously mentioned, at 6:28 p.m., she sent that text to her boyfriend, possibly believing she had escaped her attacker. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, as she was soon ambushed and then murdered. The app later showed her phone moving at a high speed after her death, before it was discarded. The autopsy revealed that April had suffered 48 injuries during the brutal attack, including multiple bruises on her face, neck, and upper body. It was clear that her killer had stomped on her with such force that her windpipe was crushed. Her death was officially ruled a homicide caused by asphyxiation and blunt force trauma to the head. The coroner also observed significant bleeding around her eyes, jaw, and neck, as well as internal hemorrhaging beneath her scalp and around her trachea. There were clear indications of an attempted sexual assault, though no male body fluid was found on or near April's body. Investigators speculated that the attacker had likely been interrupted, causing him to flee the scene abruptly. Determined to catch the killer, police established a tip line, hoping that others who had been on the trail that day might have noticed something unusual. Calls came in almost immediately. One man reported that he and his 2 daughters had seen April speaking with a man on a blue and white motorcycle. He recognized April because she was a classmate of his daughter's. At the time, they saw no reason for concern and continued on their way. It wasn't until after learning of her murder that they realized they might have seen the culprit. A mother and daughter cycling along the path that evening shared a similar account. They, too, had seen a girl with a black and white dog talking to a man wearing a black helmet sitting on an off-road motorcycle. As they passed by, nothing seemed amiss. However, after they circled back around a few minutes later, they noticed the motorcycle parked at the side of the road, but the girl and the dog were nowhere in sight. One of them briefly spotted a man, likely the bike's owner, standing in the woods. When their eyes met, the unsettling expression on his face made her quickly pedal away. Although they didn't suspect a crime had occurred at the time, the pair instinctively felt the man was trouble and hurried home to avoid him. The witnesses were quickly brought in to help a police sketch artist create a composite drawing of the suspect. The sketch was soon broadcast on local news and posted all over town. In a fortunate turn of events, the day after the murder, an Armada police officer was driving back to the station after lunch in a nearby town when he spotted a blue and white motorcycle parked in a driveway just off the main road. Turning around, he got out of his cruiser and took several photos of the bike before returning to town. When he showed the pictures to the witnesses, they confirmed that it was the same Enduro they had seen on the Orchard Trail. After checking the motorcycle's license plates in the system, officials discovered that it was registered to 32-year-old James Van Callis. Additionally, the photo on file matched the police artist's sketch of the person of interest remarkably well. Armed with this evidence, detectives sought and obtained a warrant to search the suspect's home, located about 15 miles from Armada. While investigators thoroughly examined the property, Van Callis was interrogated about his activities on the evening of July 24th. He recalled leaving home around 5 p.m. to visit his brother. Although he drove through Armada, he didn't stop and arrived at his brother's place shortly after 6, staying until 7:30. After saying goodbye, he went straight home. His girlfriend, Crystal Stadler, paid close attention as he explained his whereabouts on the night of the murder. When detectives inquired about his shoes from that evening, he promptly produced a pair of K-Swiss tennis shoes, but their soles did not match the imprints found on the victim's face and upper body. Although the search did not yield any evidence linking Van Callis to April's murder, it did uncover a significant number of marijuana plants that were being illegally grown on the property. Consequently, Van Callis was arrested on drug charges. Crystal, who had remained silent out of fear of retribution, was aware that her boyfriend had not been honest with investigators. She had seen him leave that night wearing a pair of Nike Air Flight gym shoes. When he returned home much later than anticipated, he made a point of cleaning them thoroughly with soap and hand sanitizer, an action he had never done before. She would later testify in court that the shoes, which had been his favorites, had mysteriously disappeared shortly before the search warrant was executed. Although detectives didn't have the actual shoes, they found a strong alternative. After examining his social media accounts, they discovered he had posted photos of himself wearing the Nikes. Acting on a hunch, they bought an identical pair and compared the herringbone pattern on the soles with the imprints found on April's body. Unsurprisingly, the designs matched perfectly. With the evidence mounting against him, on October 8, 2014, James Van Callis was charged with the murder, kidnapping, and attempted sexual assault of April Millsap. He remained in jail awaiting trial until January 20, 2016, when he finally appeared in court. Crystal Stadler emerged as the prosecution's key witness. No longer fearful of revealing the truth, she recounted her ex-boyfriend's troubling behavior on the night of April's murder to the jury. Her honesty was evident, contrasting sharply with Van Callis, who insisted throughout the trial that he had not been near the trails and had never seen or spoken to the teenager. The state contested his claims. Surveillance footage had captured Van Callis riding his motorcycle up and down a residential street in Armada shortly after the murder was believed to have occurred. Interestingly, this was the same area where April's cell phone had been found in the days following the discovery of her body. Additional footage from a gas station in Armada captured Van Callis arriving at the same time he claimed to be miles away at his brother's house. The packed courtroom audience, including the jurors tasked with determining his fate, observed that the defendant remained stoic while the medical examiner described the horrific violence inflicted on the 14-year-old. While many others averted their eyes from the autopsy images, he stared at them without showing any signs of distress. Since the convicted killer refused to explain what transpired on that tragic evening, detectives and prosecutors reconstructed the events based on witness testimonies and evidence collected from the scene. From their findings, it appeared that Van Callis encountered April while she was walking her dog along the main trail. Intrigued by the attractive teenager, he stopped to engage her in conversation. At some point, he reportedly made an advance, which she declined. It is believed that this was when she sent the alarming text to her boyfriend. Angered by her rejection, Van Callis, who was more than twice her age, resolved to take her by force regardless of her consent. Before the confused teenager could react, he removed his helmet and struck her on the side of the head, causing her to fall to the ground. After dragging her far off the main trail, he attempted to assault her, but something went wrong. In a fit of rage, he repeatedly stomped on her face and torso, leaving clear shoe imprints behind. The violence of the attack was so extreme that he crushed her windpipe, leading to her suffocation. He then took her cell phone and fled the scene, discarding the device several miles away in hopes that it would mislead authorities. The reason why April's killer left Penny behind remains unclear. If the dog hadn't been anxiously pacing near her owner's injured body, it's uncertain how long it might have taken for the body to be found. Fortunately, instinctively sensing that something was wrong, April's loyal companion stayed nearby, alerting passers-by to her presence. On February 20th, 2016, after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury found 34-year-old Van Callis guilty of first-degree murder, first-degree felony murder, kidnapping, and intent to commit sexual assault. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and is serving his time at the Chippewa Correctional Facility in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, where he will spend the rest of his life. Ultimately, this heartbreaking case, like many others, highlights the grim reality that predators can be found everywhere. In an ideal world, April Millsap would have returned home safely that day. Orchard Trail was frequently used, and she had no reason to suspect she was in danger. Sadly, our world is far from perfect, and there are more individuals like James Van Callis out there. What happened to April Millsap is truly tragic. A senseless act committed by someone who couldn't handle rejection, even more disturbingly, from an innocent middle schooler out walking her dog. Our heartfelt prayers and thoughts extend to her departed soul and the loved ones she left behind. If you found this video compelling, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. Thank you for watching.